Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is another Letterboxd Roundup video where I talk about and review a little bit all the new movies that I watched for a month. Today's video will be covering all the new movies I logged for the month of April. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of stuff. First, on April 5th, I watched Final Destination for the first time. Now, most of this video is just going to be Final Destination. I spent the month pretty much catching up and watching all the Final Destination movies. This is an extremely popular horror franchise that I have just never seen before. The premise of the movies is basically each movie kind of follows a group of characters that survive a big catastrophic accident that would have killed them all, and because they survived the rest of the movie, they're sort of being hunted by death. And in the first movie, the main character is played by Devon Sawa, and he's going on like a school trip, and they get on an airplane, and while he's on the plane, before it takes off, he has this vision that the plane is gonna explode when it's taking off. So he wakes up after this vision and seeing what happens and everybody that dies, and he sees the whole thing play out until he dies in his vision. So he wakes up once he dies, and everything is, it's sort of like Groundhog Day in a way, where he's starting to like see things that are happening that happen in his vision. So he freaks out and gets everybody, or tries to get everybody, off the plane, and then once they leave, you know, they think he's crazy because, you know, he's screaming about planes gonna explode and stuff. So they get him off, everybody gets off, all the schoolmates, and then they see like out the window the plane does explode. So he was right about his vision. And then from there, the movie is just basically one by one, each character starts to die in very strange and crazy ways. And then Devon Sawa's character puts together the pieces that the way that the order that they are dying in is the same order that they died in his vision. So he comes to the conclusion that they're not safe and that they escaped death, but death is still after them. But I thought it was a really fun movie. Not my favorite of the five. I'll let you know when we get to it which one is my favorite, but this one is certainly one of my favorites. Devon Sawa is a big positive of this movie. He was really great in this role. This movie is also just such a classic film. It's known by everybody. Everybody has seen, even if you haven't seen a Final Destination film, you've at least seen a clip of it. But I had a really good time with Final Destination, and I give it a 3 out of 5. And moving on April 8th, I watched Final Destination 2. Now, in my opinion, the first 3 Final Destinations sort of just keep getting better as they go. The first 3 are a great trilogy. Of course, they have their problems and flaws, but they're easy movies to just put on and watch and just have a fun time watching. Now, this one is about a group of characters that survive like a big highway accident, and similar, pretty much the plot to all of these movies is the same. That's a critique that some people have with these movies, is each movie is just the same plot, just with different characters, and I understand that, I can see that, but for me, certain movies have better characters than other movies, and that kind of helps in make the movie more enjoyable. And I think Final Destination 2 is one of the ones in this franchise that has some of the better characters. This movie is also super fast-paced, so if you're looking to watch some fast-paced movies, this is definitely a great one to watch. All of the Final Destination movies are very quick. They're all like, some of them, I think the longest one is an hour and 40, and that's the new one that just came out, but a majority of them are like an hour and 30, some are even an hour and 20. But this is a fun one. I enjoyed Final Destination 2. The opening sequence is a major iconic scene in the horror franchise. These movies will make you afraid of everything. But yeah, overall I really enjoyed Final Destination 2, and I also give it a 3 out of 5. And then next we have my favorite Final Destination of these 5 movies, Final Destination 3. I watched this one on April 12th, and it was a really fun movie. In my opinion, without a doubt, the best character of the entire franchise is in this movie. Would have been really cool to gotten more of her. I think that's one thing with the franchise, is these movies don't really carry on characters to the next one. It sort of did with the first one and the second one. There was one character they carried over, but for the rest of them, they don't really carry over much. They are all connected, and that's something I really like about it too. Each movie is connected to each other in a certain way. So while the characters from the previous movies may not be in the future ones, you still hear about them and the events that happen because they're all connected in some sort of way. Now this one opens up with a roller coaster accident. That's another thing I enjoy about these, is you sort of go into each one anticipating what the big accident's gonna be at the beginning that they were supposed to die in. It's always something crazy that happens. I've always been afraid of roller coasters, and this movie certainly made me even more afraid of roller coasters. But Final Destination 3 is the one I had the most fun with. I love the characters in this one. Overall, I give Final Destination 3 a 3.5 out of 5. Next, on April 15th, I watched what was, in my opinion, the worst Final Destination and one of the worst movies I have ever seen. The fourth Final Destination is titled The Final Destination. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe this was meant to be the last installment of the franchise. Therefore, that's why it's titled The Final Destination. But I'm very glad it wasn't, because this would have been an awful way to end. The movie is just awful. There's some cool moments in the movie, but not enough to justify saying that this is a good movie. The Final Destination has the worst characters in the whole franchise, the worst story, the worst actors, the worst acting. Everything about this movie is just terrible. And it's a real shame, because really this is the only movie in the franchise that is just awful. The characters in this movie are not likable at all. When you're watching these movies, you're supposed to be rooting for the main character to avoid death. But these characters are so bad, and the acting is so awful, that you almost cheer for death to take them. Anyways, if you're watching this franchise for the first time, you may as well watch it. There's still some, especially if you're into like the moments where the deaths happen and things like that, then it would be worth it for that. Overall, I give the Final Destination a half star out of 5. Next, on April 17th, I watched the fifth Final Destination, titled Final Destination 5. This was a good step up from the previous one. It still does not compare at all, in my opinion, to the first three. The first three were just really fun movies, and for the most part had likable characters. This one brings back likable characters, but I still felt like some of the acting was off, and I just wasn't fully in support of them. I know some people like this movie a whole lot, but I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it 100%. I still think it was a good movie, and it was way better than the fourth one. I just didn't think it was really that close to the first three. It had a lot of great moments though, and I think that's what really made this movie good. There was a lot of moments. One of the things about Final Destination movies is so many memorable moments. So you need to make sure these movies have memorable moments, and this one certainly had plenty. One of the cool things about this movie too, and this is sort of a spoiler, so warning about this, I'll give you a little bit to skip if you want. But this movie turns out at the end of it, it's actually a prequel to the first film. So it's a really cool thing if you don't know that and you're watching. It's really cool to see that big twist at the end, to know that this is a prequel to the very first movie. And it pretty much leads directly into the opening of that movie where the plane crashes. Overall, I didn't like it as much as the first three, but I liked it a whole lot better than the fourth. Despite that, I still give it the same rating I gave the first two. I give it a 3 out of 5. Next, on April 22nd, I watched The Blob. This is a body horror film from 1988 starring Shawnee Smith and Kevin Dillon. I've had this movie in the collection for a while now, but I just have never gotten to watching it. This weekend is actually Texas Frightmare Weekend. That's a horror convention, and they're both going to be there. So I thought I would watch this before I see them at the convention. I'm not planning on meeting Kevin Dillon, but Shawnee Smith is the big one I'm trying to meet. She also plays Amanda in the Saw franchise, so I think it's going to be really cool to meet her. But before I met her, I wanted to watch this because this is like one of her biggest movies that she's been in. I had a really great time with this movie. This movie was a really good one. Also, I would say it's a very underrated horror film from the 80s. I don't hear many people talking about this movie, but it's very, it's got those 80s feelings to it, so if you're into 80s vibes and things like that, then I think you would enjoy this. Basically, it's about like this alien blob thing that comes down to Earth, and it just kind of starts taking over a town, and there's these high school students that are sort of caught in the middle of it, and they're trying to protect the town before it gets taken over by the blob. But this movie was really fun. I really loved this one. It's got some great visuals, great practical effects. I always enjoy seeing practical effects. I think it's really cool seeing how you can do stuff without using like modern technology. Even in today's movies, I prefer, especially with horror films, I prefer that practical effect over the CGI. Like take the Alien franchise for example. I would much rather have the alien be a practical effect, like a puppet sort of thing, over it being a digital CGI. Overall, I highly recommend this movie, and I give it a 4 out of 5. Next, on April 23rd, I watched Ryan Coogler's new film, Sinners. This is an amazing new vampire film. Ryan Coogler has made so many great movies already, but this for sure is his masterpiece, and it may stay his masterpiece for the rest of his career. Directors always have that one movie where it just sticks with them forever as like their masterpiece. And I really do think that this movie is Ryan Coogler's masterpiece. This movie stars Michael B. Jordan, who plays two twin brothers who comes back to their hometown to start a new business. They're starting like this music bar kind of thing. They invite a whole bunch of people to come celebrate the opening and just have a good time. But then they are visited by this like Irish vampire dude, and he sort of starts infecting people, and it just kind of spreads and it gets real chaotic. I really like how it was paced too. It takes a long time for the vampires to even get involved into the story, but during that time, before that happens, they're really building the characters and building the relationships so that all matters later when certain people get turned to vampires and some people die from it. This movie was just really good. It was shot well, written good, acted well, everything about it great. I can't wait to rewatch Sinners again when it comes out on 4K, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. And that's all the movies I watched for the month of April. If you like this stuff, please like, subscribe, and comment, and I hope to see you in the next ones.